Absolutely. If the weather outside, so if it's cold outside, I'm usually having like soup for lunch or maybe even like tea with my lunch. But if it's a hot summer day, you want something ice cold. Maybe you even get like a smoothie or something, right? So temperature goes into, I never even thought about that. So your environment goes into affecting your lunch decision. What else, Rich?
Like what you've had in the past few days, like not to have that again. Like
Exactly. You don't want repetition, right? In your food, you can't have the same thing every day. It'll get boring. So variability in what you've had. So your previous events affecting the future event. Very good. Very good. What else? There's a lot. There's so many answers to this. Ash.
Are we getting any exercise
Yeah, if you worked out today, maybe you'll have that cookie for lunch, or maybe you won't if you did, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was meeting last week. I went for a run and I ran like a 5-mile run. I was all excited. I exercised, and then I came back and had like a big cookie. And I was like, oh man, it like killed the purpose of it, But yeah, if you've exercised that week or how you feel physically at that moment in time. What else, George? The cost. Cost is huge, obviously. I would not personally go out in New York City and buy lunch because I can't afford it. I would never buy New York City lunch ever. It's just the truth. It's, what is it? Like if you go out to a sandwich shop, $10 for like €1. It's very expensive. So I usually get lunch at school or I end up bringing my own lunch. I bring my own lunch from home a lot because of the cost. Cost is huge. What else? That's 4. Maybe one from each person. What else could you think of? Come on, there's a lot more. I can think of like 5 others.
How much time do you have?
How much time for lunch? If you have a quick lunch, what might you get? What's something easy? Yeah, a sandwich or something that's pre-made or something that you already brought in. But are you going to maybe go to the panini line and wait 20 minutes when you only have 10 minutes left of lunch? Probably not, depending on that day. Future, good. So he did earlier, right? He said what you've eaten the previous few days. You said, what are you going to eat later? If you know you're going home tonight and your dad's like, hey, we're getting burgers tonight. And school lunch today is burgers. Are you probably going to eat burgers? Probably not. Unless you love burgers, then maybe you'll get a burger. So maybe you will. But personally, I would not eat a burger for lunch if I'm having it for dinner, right? So the future affecting it. What else? Come on, there's got to be something from each of you. Some of you haven't answered yet. What are some other things you can think of that would affect your lunch decision?
Who's going places?
Okay, social interactions. Very good. So maybe some of your friends are going out to lunch, so you go out. Whereas other days, they don't want to go out. And a bunch of you don't want to go out, so you stay in for lunch. That affects you. Good. Socially, who you're with. Anything else? Yeah? How hungry you are. Not even just time, but how hungry you physically are. You're going to get that dessert that day. What are you going to do? All right, I'm really exhausting all of our resources here for that. But the common idea here is that you have many criteria that affect your decision, whether you realize it or not. But your brain is such a powerful computer that what do? What does your brain do?
Think.
What does it do?
Think.
Think. Okay, think. Yes, it thinks for sure. But specifically with this situation, your brain always thinks, I hope. What is it doing? What is your brain doing?
Making a decision.
Trying to estimate account for all the variables.
Exactly. It's trying to optimize or account for every characteristic or criteria or variable that's involved. It's saying, you know what, let's balance this out. Let's figure this out. I guess I could do this, but I really don't want to do this today. But I guess I could settle with this, but I really don't want this today. So you're looking at all the possible choices and you're coming up with the optimal solution. That's what the goal of this is going to be. To find the optimal solution. Yeah?
I mean, usually your brain, I think, that's how I decided it. I like thinking of the biggest, most important variable and like use it to kind of weapons.
What you said is that's great, Tristan. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about here. He's talking about what's called weighting. You're weighting the criteria. He said, I really take into account the most important variable that day. So for anyone who plays a sport, your most important variable might be like, I need to get a lot of carbs in my body because I need energy later today, and I'm going to be running, so I also need water. So that might be your most important criteria that day. Whereas another day, honestly, it's the winter, you're not playing any sports, the most important criteria might be, I want to stay warm. I don't want to go out to lunch, I want to have a nice warm lunch, so maybe I'm going to get the soup that's for lunch today instead of just a cold sandwich. That could be the most important criteria that day. So what you're doing is you're assigning weights to the criteria. That's exactly what we're going to do with this topic. And you do it a lot, but have you ever done it mathematically? Probably not. You don't usually do this mathematically because there's no numbers involved. In the past, it's always been hot lunch, cold lunch. Is it warm enough to go out? Is it cold enough? You're not assigning numbers to these. Usually they're called qualitative. Qualitative, meaning the quality versus quantitative. You're going to talk about research when you get to your advanced like science courses, or even if you take like a course like psychology in college, where you're looking at research, where you talk about qualitative versus quantitative research. Quantitative research means quantity, involves numbers. Qualitative does not involve numbers. We are going to show how you can take qualitative criteria, such as is it warm enough, maybe not, and assign numbers to it to make an informed decision. Okay, assign numbers according to their weights, according to the numbers we give them. All right, let's go forward a little bit. So these are just examples I wanted to go through real quick. We're not going to run through them all. But a government makes a lot of decisions all the time in a country. These are simple examples. Location of an airport, a landfill, a stadium. How would these criteria differ? Give me a quick example. How would it change an airport versus a landfill versus a sporting stadium? George.
Well, a stadium you want to be close to a bigger road, that way all the people can transport. And the landfill you want to be around a lot of people because it might affect them negatively. And the airport, you need a big space because the runway has to be very big.
Perfectly stated, okay? Again, location, location, location for all three, but very different locations. It makes sense. It's common sense. Now, does the government always have a perfect option? No. So they have to find some sort of a balance sometimes. And you'll hear about LaGuardia. Has anyone ever flown out of LaGuardia Airport before? Okay. So a lot of you. Personally, you guys are younger. You probably don't even realize this. LaGuardia is not in an ideal location at all. It is not in a good location, meaning to get there. It takes either buses or trains. It's not easy to get to LaGuardia one bit. It is relatively easy to get to JFK. JFK you can access from the Long Island Railroad via the air tram. You can get there taking the A train, which takes you to a shuttle. You can get there through a bus service, and it's not bad to drive to JFK. But LaGuardia is not the greatest location. So about 5 years ago, there was a news article about the proposal to move the location of LaGuardia. And they were considering actually moving it to Rikers Island, where there's currently a prison, and they demolishing the prison and rebuilding an airport there as a location. And they're still in they're in talks of this, and the city would have a subway line that would go directly to the airport from there. So again, the concept of location is huge. Okay, let's keep going. These are personal choices. NFL and NBA draft. How many of you like sports some way or another? Doesn't matter what sport, but like some sport. I feel like everybody likes a sport, right? Doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a sports buff. But even if you like, honestly, figure skating, if you like baseball, if you like wrestling, if you like golf, doesn't matter what sport it is. In any sport, you have to consider decisions. This example is a great one. NFL and NBA, there's a draft every year. It's a big deal. The NFL draft is it's televised, it's huge. Turns out, about a year ago, the NBA started using the Watson supercomputer. Has anyone heard of this thing? Watson? It was on Jeopardy for a little while. IBM created a supercomputer called Watson. They gave it a name. It's just a computer that can do all sorts of decision-making processes for you. It's an artificial intelligence machine, really. It went on Jeopardy, played against the best Jeopardy players of all time, and kicked their butts. Because it's a computer. It was able to understand and give an answer out for everything. So the NBA last year, the Toronto Raptors, in their draft choices, used IBM's Watson to help them make their decisions. So they're using computing power now to make decisions like who are we going to pull from which colleges? Why? What do you think the criteria come about from? If you're thinking about an NBA draft, what might be important as a coach that you want your players to have, or what might you be thinking about?
Height and weight.
Height and weight. So physical nature. What else?
Well, if there are certain positions that you might need.
Positions. What are positions open?
I would say previous experience.
Previous experience. That's a great one because you know what? If you have a bad track record in a previous team, why might they not want you? You're not a good team player, right? You want to say something about that? Okay, team player. So sportsmanship. So there's a lot of decisions that go into to be made. Well, a computer can make decisions so much faster than a human. So we're going to see with this topic more and more, I'm going to use Excel at 1.2, that we're going to use Excel to allow the computer to solve for us, to give us an answer when we get there. All right, let's keep going. Again, this is a lot of just different personal things. So for you guys, these would be 4 choices that as you get older, that would be very important. So in college, what professor are you going to take and what course? So in college, you pretty much can decide all of your courses. You have a general track you have to follow if you're in a certain field. So if you're in engineering, I'm going to open the air. If you're in engineering versus, I don't know, English, obviously you have to take different courses depending on where you are. So if you're in an English track, yeah, sure, you have to take English as a major, but you probably have like 4 or 5 choices to choose from. You could probably choose from different options of classes or professors. If you're an engineering track, yeah, you have to take calculus, you have to take calculus 2, thermodynamics, but you have choices of professors or maybe the time. When I used to, so you guys can tell probably by now, I hope, that I'm a very mathematical person by nature. I was in engineering college and I did masters in engineering and all that. I never went out to work as an engineer, I just studied engineering. I love optimizing. When I was a freshman and sophomore in college, we used to have times that we could sign up for courses, and based on how many credits you completed, you could sign up earlier. And you always wanted to be the first to sign up because you have more choices, right? So I would always sit there and have my list of classes I wanted to get. As soon as it turned to be 10 a.m., I would log in to sign up for the classes. But what did I also have after my list of classes? I had alternatives. And I purposely used Microsoft Excel because I was able to copy and paste the course numbers in and do it real quick and beat all the other students out of it. So what was I doing? I was thinking about what was the fastest way to get the best possible courses at the correct times I want. So I had all these alternatives and choices. So you're doing this all the time. Your parents do it with a cell phone plan. Maybe you actually decide some of that. When you guys get a little bit older, maybe in your junior year, you're going to start with college decisions. I know it sounds crazy, but you can actually do this for your college decision. There's a lot of things, and we're going to do an example of that in this unit. And you're going to see how one of the students, as the example, makes a decision based on all of these different criteria. And then finally, a car. If you want to buy a car, you guys live in the city, it's not as applicable to you. So first, let's go through some steps. You want to frame the decision. You need to think about what criteria are you trying to maximize or minimize. Are you trying to look at the situation? Let's say, for example, you're picking what college to go to. Do you want to maximize social life or minimize? It depends on the person you are. Are you a party animal in college? Are you going to go out a lot? Do you want to have a crazy social life? Or do you want a college that's pretty more reasonable, that has a good balance of academics with social life? Or do you want a college that's really all academics? You're going there to study, you want to study. Those decisions are really important. So either you're maximizing or minimizing. It's one or the other. Okay? Or you're searching for a certain specific value. You're going to identify all different alternatives. Collect data. Now, what kind of data do you have to collect? Some data you might not know. So maybe part of your decision-making process is the weather at the college you're going to. You don't know the weather at every college, so what do you have to do? You have to research and collect data. So 88 degrees on average might be a great score for you guys, because maybe a lot of you want to go to the West Coast, you want a warm environment. But somebody else that's maybe from Canada likes to ski a lot, wants to go somewhere like in Vermont or still up in Canada maybe, so they want a temperature that's lower. So you're trying to get the data to work around, or your solution to work around the data that you're actually collecting. So you have to collect data as you go through the process. This is the key one here. Convert data to what's called common units. And that's where we're going to talk about quantitative values. So for example, we'll say 1 is good and 0 is bad. Okay? 1 is what we want, 0 is what we don't want. It's the easiest way to do it. And then you put criteria for everything. The highest score is the one you want. So a 1 might be warm weather. A 0 might be considered cold weather. I'm not giving numbers. I'm saying cold weather and warm weather. What would a 0.5 be then? What would a 0.5 be? In between. Proportionally general. So maybe to you, a score of a 0 is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. You know what? Once it's 70 degrees, I don't want to go any lower. That's the lowest I'm willing to go. Right? That's the worst possible temperature I want, or the lowest possible. To me, ideally, let's make believe 90 degrees is what I really want in college. So a 90 might be a 1, and a 70 might be a 0. So what would an 80 be then? 0.5. What would a 75 be? 0.25. What would an 85 be? 0.75. I'm proportionally spacing out those other temperature scales. So you're converting some sort of a scale into a 0, 1, which is called common unit. Circle that word, please. Okay, common units. Oh, do you not have these open? My bad, guys. Anytime I do notes, you know they're always on Moodle, even class notes and project notes. Unless they're not visible. They should be visible. Let me check on mine and make sure they're visible real quick. Okay, sorry about that. So again, what I would do if you have a chance now that you have the slides open, circle common units and write yourself a little definition of what that means. It doesn't have to be anything specific. It could maybe just simply say convert numbers to 0 and 1, or convert theories or ideas to zeros or ones. Okay, it's like a binary system really, but we're going from 0 all the way to 1, not just 0 or 1. Okay, any number from 0 to 1 is acceptable. Tristan, you mentioned a little while ago about applying and thinking to yourself, what's the most important criteria? That'll help you make the decision, right? So for lunch, we talked about 10 ideas easily for lunch. But the most important to you might be, I don't know, what you've eaten the past few days. You don't want to have the same meal as what you've had. That might be the most governing thing there is. And you know what? You go down to the lunchroom today, and they happen to have chicken. And you guys are like, I had chicken the other day. I'm done with chicken. That might be the thing that puts you over the edge, says, I'm going out for lunch today. So that would be the highest weighting. That's what this next line is talking about. Subjective weights assigned to each measure. Okay, and then we'll talk about how to calculate these scores in different things. Tonight, I'm going to have you read out of this text. I haven't decided the exact pages yet, so where should you check in a little while? Okay, on Moodle, under homework, I'll give you the exact pages I want you to read out of here. If you don't have the text yet, no big deal, but you need to come by and at least take some snapshots of mine before the end of the day, or have a classmate scan it or send it over to you.
Yeah.
So, they're interesting names, right? So remember I gave you that reading assignment the last few days? I had you read some sections out of the book. That's what we're going to really focus on today. So these sections talk about a wireless plan, going to a college, and then buying a used car. We're going to focus on the first two, and then your first project's going to begin. So we're going to really focus on the first one together. The second one, the selecting college, I'm going to have you do with each other in groups. And then the third thing I'm going to have you do is going to be the actual project where you pick a topic. So you're going to choose a topic in which you want to take a multi-criteria decision-making approach toward. So that topic might be, what did you wear on way back Wednesday day? What was the decision-making process you took? Maybe that's not long enough. Maybe that's not lengthy enough. It has to be something of substance. So maybe another decision you made. What's a decision you made recently that was something that you really thought about for a long time? George? So it turned out that was actually an interesting problem we talked about. Look at that. Yeah, Sean, I like it. What you got for lunch? What else?
Maybe like last year, 8th grade, where you're going to school.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of, Bridge. That's exactly what I was thinking. Think about it, guys. Come on. You made a huge decision last year. Where are you going to school? Are you regretting it? Are you loving it? You really shouldn't know that answer, by the way, yet. It's way too soon to regret a decision like that. Or to be like, oh my God, I love Loyola. Everything about it is great, you know? You'll come into what you feel toward Loyola in the school. But I'll tell you that obviously, you know, I've been here for 5 years. I clearly like the school, or else I wouldn't work here. I mean, you should know that about all your teachers. You would never work at a school you didn't like. Any teacher that says that they're like, I hate my job, they're in the wrong place, clearly. You know what I mean? So you'll make that decision. But that's a decision maybe you can go back and think about. What were the decisions that you chose? Because a lot of you know, the location of the school, the cost of the school, the academic caliber of the school, what the classes the school had to offer, what sports the school had to offer. So all these things came into account when you made your decision, whether you realize it or not. Where your friends were going to school, isn't that a big decision usually? Doesn't that help you, where your friends are going to school? I know that me personally, when I went to college, that was a big decision. Where's everybody else going? So anyhow, keep going with this. So first, this is what I had you guys read part of already, so you don't have to do this, which is good. That's why I had that in the assignment. So we talked about Isabel and Angelo and choosing a wireless plan. So let's go ahead and talk about this. So first, we have to take a look at the framework of this problem. We have to look at the criteria that are involved. So there were 3 criteria involved, and you read all this already, but I'm going through this. Okay, this is what I had you guys do the last few days. But I'll go through it slowly in case for some reason somebody didn't get to read it or didn't get a chance to yet. We have these 3 criteria. The cost itself, and the cost had 3 types of cost, which we all know about now. The contract features, and then the actual service itself. What does type mean? Let's jump over to the right. What does type mean?
Like the way you categorize the information, like from worst to best. Like, for example, phones are like quality service, there's good, very good, great, or something.
Yeah, that would be categorical because it's the way you categorize it. What about this? How would it differ? Somebody else. How would this yellow region differ? Continuous. How does that differ from categorical? Continuous.
Because continuous, you make the payments monthly, so, and you get monthly, so then the contract features are just there, like they don't change. Or, well, the length does, the data plan or rollover data.
That's not what continuous means in this case, but I like what you're getting at there. I like what you're getting at. Categorical versus continuous. Categorical versus continuous. Kate?
Continuous is kind of like a number that you can tell, while categorical is like you have to put it on a scale because it's not really a definitive number.
Yeah, so remember yesterday I talked about qualitative and quantitative the other day? That's what she's saying. So here, monthly charge, wouldn't you have a number there? Wouldn't you have an actual value? So this you have a range of numbers that are continuous, a spectrum of numbers. The monthly charges might range from the most expensive phone plan to the most inexpensive. And all of those values in between are possible numbers. You have a continuous spectrum of data there. Whereas here, you're categorical. Quality of service is discrete. We're looking at different things. It's good, well, it's okay, it's good, or it's great. Or maybe bad, good, great. I forget what we use for the terms. And then finally here, the categorical are a little bit different. These categorical, instead of being on a scale of low, easy, or low, medium, and high, these categorical we have to think about here, rollover data. Why is it categorical? It's yes or no. Does the plan offer rollover data or doesn't it? That's it. Although now, I should put this out there, if you have Verizon, Verizon came out with their new rollover data plan that's recent, that's actually a complete scam. And for those who know math can realize why it's a scam. Here's how it works, and maybe you can figure out the scam behind it. Rollover data used to be this. If you didn't use up the minutes, or it used to be rollover minutes, by the way, back in the day when I was younger, we had cell phone minutes. Now everybody has unlimited minutes, you know. It used to be if you didn't use your minutes, they carried over the next month. And you had like a bank of minutes. That every time you didn't use them, they just kept going into that bank. And if you ever went over in a month, it pulled from the bank, so you didn't have overage. Which is what it sounds like, right? That's what rollover should be. Verizon are a bunch of scumbags, to be honest. And they're convoluted in the way they advertise. It's not rollover. Here's their rollover. If this month, I'll give you my family situation. I'm in a family plan with my brothers. So we all share a phone plan, we split the bill. So we share 8 gigs as a family. We used to only share 4. We just upped it to 8 recently because none of us use our data. So we used to only share 4 gigs amongst the 4 of us. I have 3 brothers, so it's 4 of us together. We used to share 4 gigabytes, approximately a gig each. But my one brother always went over. So we recently upped it to 8, but then we found out about this rollover. So we're like, oh, this is great. So last month or 2 months ago, we only used 6 gigs. So we had 2 left, right? Makes sense, okay? So those 2 gigs of rollover went into the next month. So next month we had 8 gigs plus the 2 rollover. The way Verizon does their plan is they don't pull from the rollover area at all. They only go from your regular 8 gigs until you go over, then they start pulling from the rollover. So you think, okay, if I go over the 8, I can use those, that's great, that works. But if you don't use the rollover from the previous month, it goes away. It only rolls over 1 month at a time. So the 2 gigs you got from the previous month, if in this month, instead of going over your 8 gigs, you only use 5, you would think you'd have 3 and 2, right? And you'd have 5 now stored? No, the 2 from the first month go away. So theoretically, there's no way to increase your rollover. Right? Mathematically, you can prove it. There's no way to ever have greater rollover than 8 gigs. Because if you have an 8 gig plan, you use nothing, you roll over with the 8 from the previous month, but until you use 8 plus the other 8, you can't actually use them. You lose them if you don't use them every month. It resets on a 1-month basis. So it's not really a cumulative rollover plan. It's a previous month rollover plan. So it's complete false advertisement because everybody assumes rollover means a continuous adding to a cumulative bank of numbers. Because that's how rollover has been forever for all plans. Verizon doesn't advertise it this way, and they don't even put a little asterisk in the fine print at the bottom, you know? They don't even do that. You have to actually research it in your phone plan to see that it's true. Because I was trying to figure out. I'm like, wait, last month we used 6, then we only used 5. That's 2 gigs, that's an extra 3 gigs. We should have 5 gigs in our rollover, yet I only had 3 from this month. The 2 from this month, since we didn't use them, we lost them. You don't use them, you lose them. That's their mentality. So, again, you have to be careful with the way people word things. In this case, rollover is yes or no. We're going to say the plan has it or doesn't. And we're going to assume that rollover is a good thing, even though it's a good thing still, but it's not as good as they make it seem. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Let's take a look at our other things we go through here. So for categorical, we can take an actual look at the measurement of scale. So for the data plan, for the data plan. These are the options that we have. These are the 4 options. Which is obviously the best option? The 15 gig data plan would be your best option, right? 15 gig here, and then successfully lower. For rollover, yes or no, again, best or worst, quality of service, excellent, very good, or good, and then contract length, 0, 1 year, 2 year. Explain the contract length. Explain that. Which is good, which is bad. And it says best or worst, so you have a hint already, but I want you to specifically explain contract length. In terms of real life understanding.
Well, it's how long they keep you like locked into your contract until you have to like pay. Because if you like cut out, say, if you have a 2-year contract length and you decide you don't want the service anymore,
What do you have to do?
A year, you have to pay extra money to cancel the contract.
So the best thing would be no contract. That's what people now advertise. Unless you get locked into a really cheap contract that's low rate. And maybe in a year or 2, the rates are going to go up, but you're locked into a lower contract. So this one could be the one I could see that's a bit subjective in its answer. Why is 0 the best, really? Could 2 be the best? Possibly, if you get a great deal on that plan. Follow what I'm saying? Okay? It's like interest rates on mortgages on homes. Mortgages on homes, some people are like, oh, I want to lock into a 20-year deal because it's a great rate right now. Versus somebody else that says, I don't want to do this over 10 years. Now, interest, the longer you pay it for, the more you actually end up paying. So it's usually better to get a short period of interest in general. But you might want to what's called remortgage your house eventually when interest rates go down. And you can take out what's called a new mortgage with lower rates. So in that case, a shorter length of term would be better for that mortgage contract so you can lock into a new rate when it gets lower. If the economy is going to do better, usually interest rates will end up going down. So it has a function of time usually there. So this is how we're going to have our categorical measure of scales here. Anything else I want to talk about? Quality of service, obviously, right? The better the service, the better it is. Yeah, George.
The question about interest rates, like when the Fed like lowers interest rates, like or like raises them, and if they're like if they become like a negative number or something, does that mean like you can refinance your mortgage? And, like,
If interest rates become a negative number,
yeah, I thought about like in Japan, they're negative interest rates or something.
Oh yeah, I heard about that too. Something like that.
well, interest rates, simple interest rates, this might be something more complex than I know, than I've actually done. I've studied a little bit of business. I tutor some college students on like business calculus and stuff, business applied math. But what I know about an interest rate is it's the amount of money you're going to pay for somebody giving you money up front. That's really what an interest rate is. So if I give you $1,000 as a loan as a bank, I say to you, you know what? You got to pay me back over installments for 2 years with 5% interest. So instead of getting 1,000 back from you, I get 1,000 plus another 5%. 5% on 1,000 will be $50. Yeah, $50. So in the end, you pay me 1,050 back over a 2-year period. That's where the interest rate comes in about. So a negative interest rate would mean like the bank is giving you money as a loan and you're paying them back less.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be reasonable. Maybe something happened where that could have happened in like some sort of something happened where there's something went bankrupt. I don't know where that could have come about. So I'm not really sure, George, to answer your question. If you could find where you read that or something and send me a link, I'm happy to read and explain it. I can do that for sure. But I haven't heard of that myself. Has anyone else any knowledge on that? Yeah.
I guess it's because like in Japan how they overbuild too many buildings.
They over what?
Overbuild too many buildings.
So they built too many buildings.
Yeah, and nobody's living there, and nobody can buy it because it's too expensive. So the government kind of use this,
As like an incentive?
just
Saying like, here, we'll give you negative interest rates so you just at least take money now so you do buy it.
because
that-
there are too many empty buildings.
I could see that as being a reason, as like an incentive. Sure. And that would be like the government subsidizing it then, really? So the subsidy is really? What are you going to say?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay, but you didn't read too much about it. So I'm saying, if you find more about it, send me a link to it. I'd love to read. Okay, and I'm happy to go over and explain and talk about it. All right, so let's take a look about this now. We talked about short contract length already. We talked about categories here for this, right? That's what we were just talking about with contract length. Quality of service already we talked about, right? Excellent, very good, good. Why was there no poor as an option? Why is poor not listed as an option?
Because they don't even want to consider something.
Because you wouldn't even consider it. Think about it. You're getting a cell phone plan that you want to talk on the phone, don't you? Well, you guys nowadays, you talk on the phone much? You still saying yes? I like that. Good. For the most part, a lot of millennials seem to be like this a lot, not like this. It's a different stage, but it's all right. It's fine. Everything's different. But you would never choose a service that was poor You never get cell phone service. You never get service to send out text messages unless you're on Wi-Fi maybe. So you never choose poor, so it's not even listed as a category. Okay, it's not even listed. What's the data source for this? Everything else data is easy to pick up. You can go to the website, you pick up the rates, the cost, the data plans, the size, the contract lengths, it's all there. Where's your data source? Where's your data source? If I wanted to make this more of a problem, I could have had you guys do in the first page, which is like research about phone companies, but that really just drags it out when I get to the point of the stuff.
Maybe reviews from like people who use the
Yeah, usually you get like a technology review, a person that reviews tech and like gadgets and stuff. So maybe some sort of a forum that reviews all different types of phone plans, phones themselves, services,
Probably,
user data themselves you can look at. Yeah.
you probably also want to take into account like more than one source. Like
Sure.
if they all say something amazing, then you should probably
Sure.
rate it as that.
You want to look at more than one source. You need to verify that source. You can't assume because the first one said it was a good provider, a good service, whatever it is, that another person is going to have the same answer. I'll give you an example that when I was younger, I did not have Verizon. I have Verizon now. When I was a kid, we had T-Mobile, I remember. My whole family had T-Mobile. And I didn't get a cell phone until I was in 12th grade. That's when they really were coming out in 9th grade when I was in 9th grade. But I got one in 12th grade. And here was the thing that stunk. I had T-Mobile and it was great on Long Island, right? Then I went to college. T-Mobile didn't have good coverage at that time. Now they have much better coverage. Almost all companies have coverage everywhere now. But it was a dead zone where I was. I studied in Villanova in Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, and I could not get service anywhere. I was so upset. And on top of that, in our dorms specifically, in our building was cinder block dorm rooms, you lost service because of the cinder blocks. T-Mobile got terrible service, but Verizon got great service in the hallways. So by the second year, I actually left my family plan and switched to my own phone provider. I had to pay my own bill, which was terrible as a kid, but it was worth it in college because I could actually use my phone. If I was in my dorm room and wanted to talk to friends about plans for the weekend or plans for studying later or going to play sports or I played a ton of sports, anything like that, you had to talk, right? And at that point, by the way, there weren't everybody didn't have computers. So I had a computer because I was in engineering, but other students didn't have computers in college. So anyhow, your data and your actual service plays a big role. There are other possible measures. We're going to look at these specific ones for this problem. Are there any other measures you could consider that we haven't talked about for a phone plan? What other measures might you consider? Anything else that you can think of?
I mean, if you really want to, you could consider the charitable causes that the corporations make.
Okay, sure. You could look at the actual corporation and see, are they a corporation that employs really low wages in parts of the world where the setup is like a terrible arrangement and people are working in these terrible factories versus a company who does really great things and has great morals and ethics. So morals and ethics of the company. That's one thing. What else? Bridge was next.
I know we were already talking about quality of service, but depending on where you live, for example, in New York, you should get great cell service anywhere. So you can probably go for a much cheaper plan if you live here than if you live more in the middle of nowhere.
So geography of where the plan is going to be used. Good.
Also customer service.
Customer service.
Yeah, their attitude is good or not.
Totally. I mean, I know for a fact that I absolutely despise Time Warner Cable. The internet provider in the city is Verizon, and Time Warner Cable pretty much is all that exists. Time Warner Cable's customer service has been terrible for 5 years. If you went online and looked at the reviews, they were like a 2-star company, literally on Google reviews, where everybody, if you're even decent, is a 3. Come on. A 4 is good. A 5 is you're actually good. They're like a 2.1. So their last year, what do you see on TV now? All their advertisements are about better customer service. We're going to get to you in better time. We're going to show up on time. We're going to be able to help you over the phone. It's all lies. They're not even better.
You could also take into if you're somebody that travels a lot, you can take into account how that would
International plans, if you need a SIM card for international use. So there are other things, is what we're saying, correct? So there are other categories we could really use and other data sources. So now we need to talk about what's called common units. Let's spend a little bit talking about common units here. And we want to rescale things to common units. So categorically, it's easy. If something is good, we would call it a 1. If something is not good, we would call it a 0. Why? Why does that make sense logically?
Because everything in between is kind of like 1 to 100. It's just
Okay, everything in between is like 1 to 100, but later on, what can we do with numbers? How can numbers help us? Use math here.
You can add them up,
And see what?
see which one is the higher number, which is like the better one.
Yeah, the higher number is the better plan. If you could give each plan a rating in each category, and you have these categorical scales, the higher means better. So the more the number is, the larger it is. That makes sense, right? So we want to rescale everything from 0 to 1. That's categorically. And that's the same thing with most preferred, end of the range, and least preferred. For example, do you want 15 gigs as a family plan or 2 gigs? If it's the same price, assuming. Which one do you want? So 15 gigs would be a 1. 2 gigs would be, and how would you get the ones in between? 0.5s or proportionally. Okay, assuming it's halfway between is 0.5, yes. But if it's like 3/4 of the way there, then it's a 0.75. It make sense? Okay, proportionally moving. That's what we're talking about here at the bottom, intermediate values. So let's take a quick look at these ranges. So these ranges are from best to worst. The best total monthly cost is the least amount, isn't it? 180 a month, that's the cheapest, that's the best. Best to worst. The worst is 250. Overage fee, who knows about this? What's an overage fee? What's an overage fee? You probably all know about it. Probably all get your parents upset. Your parents probably say, "What are you doing on that phone? Stop on your Snapchat and your Instagram and all that, any videos you do." So what is overage, Annette?
Basically, say you have data and you go over the amount of gigs you have.
Exactly. They just start stealing your money at that point. They say, "I'm just going to steal everything. $17, $20, $30 a gigabyte." The overage rates are absurd. So you want a lower overage rate. We'll pick up with the next slide. Yeah, we went over kind of all this stuff already. So we'll pick the next slide about this tomorrow.